Live from the CBS Bay Area studios, this is KPIX 5 News.
It's going to be an unbelievable victory, actually, when we get it through the Senate, and there's so much spirit there.
Now on KPIX 5 News, the president expressing confidence or overconfidence. His plan to replace Obamacare scored big victory in the House, but it now goes to the Senate.
Plus, what does the American Health Care Act mean for the state of California? We asked Congressman Mark DeSaulnier.
And later, making a run for mayor. Former San Francisco Supervisor and State Senator Mark Lino will be in the studio, and we're going to sit down with him and talk about what's right and what's wrong with the city. It's 7:30 a.m. on a Sunday, May 7th. Good morning. I'm Phil Matier.
And I'm Melissa Kane.
And I'm Julie Watts. And we'll start this morning with a check of your Sunday morning forecast. Winds have died down, and that means temperatures are warming today. Outside right now, blue skies over the Golden Gate, and temperatures in the low 50s for most. 49 right now in Livermore, 53 Concord, 51 for San Francisco, San Jose, Santa Rosa at this hour. Yesterday, very windy. Today, as those winds die down, we still do have some breezy conditions along the coast, but overall a cool start with much calmer winds in most locations. Temperatures today will increase back to actually a bit above average for this time of year. We're talking 70s for some folks inland, and then mild, staying mild through the week ahead, or at least through the first half of the week ahead, and then we do start to cool towards the latter half of your work week. Today, sunshine, a great day to get outdoors in Mountain View for the a la carte art festival. Temperatures there warming up into the low 70s today, so a mild Sunday for you. Your full forecast coming up in just a bit, and I'll show you just how warm we'll get this week and when we'll cool. Back over to you guys.
For years, Republicans have been promising to repeal Obamacare. Well, this week, they're closer than ever after the House passed its own version of a health care bill.
Obamacare's dead. So when you compare something to Obamacare, Obamacare is no longer living. And we have something that's going to be, I think, one of the best anywhere in the world, and we look forward to it.
The House bill passed without a single Democratic vote, just as Obamacare passed with no Republican support. Thursday's final tally, 217 to 213. Now, the bill eliminates or alters some key elements of Obamacare. For example, it does provide tax credits to help individuals pay for their insurance, but many low-income and older Americans would get less than under current law. Also, insurers would be allowed to charge older customers 5 times more than younger ones, compared to Obamacare that capped that limit at 3 to 1. States would also be allowed to roll back the requirement that all insurance plans cover a set of basics, including maternity care and emergency services. California's Attorney General says, quote, the House vote takes a dangerous step towards jeopardizing the health security of millions of people, and I will use every legal tool at my disposal to safeguard the health care of people that our state is depending on.
Now, one of the ways that the GOP plans to lower costs for healthy people is by allowing states to put individuals with pre-existing conditions into separate high-risk pools. But this is something California has tried before.
You know, I'm at a loss right now because I don't know what to do.
Gary McCoy is HIV positive and has a history of cancer.
With the pre-existing conditions that I have, if I were forced into a high-risk pool, I certainly couldn't afford it. It would mean death.
High-risk pools aren't actually new. Before the Affordable Care Act, when insurance companies could reject individuals for pre-existing conditions, 35 states, including California, had high-risk pools. According to a recent report on the California experience, California's high-risk pools had a long waiting list. At one point in 2001, more than 7,000 people with pre-existing conditions were trying to get into California's high-risk pool. There were also lifetime caps of $750,000 and an annual cap of $75,000 for the people who were in the high-risk pool. And finally, those in the pool had higher premiums and deductibles than those outside. Deborah Kelch is the executive director of the Insure the Uninsured project, which issued the report. She says it's not exactly clear what the new high-risk pools might look like, since there's only a few sentences devoted to it in the new law.
We don't know, are they going to send us all back to filling out our big, long health history forms? Are the insurers going to have their own separate criteria for turning us down? That's how it was.
And while high-risk pools may sound like a new idea, some people remember California's very well.
I'm sure anyone who's ever on a waiting list, got turned down, had a pre-existing condition, they have no amnesia about this. This affected their lives.
Remember, though, it's up to the states to allow price hikes on people with pre-existing conditions and the high-risk pools that have to go along with that.
To think of going back to all of that and taking ourselves so far back, it's heartbreaking, and I hope it's not who California is.
Now, there are 14 California Republicans in the House of Representatives, and every one of them voted in favor of the American Health Care Act.
Now, when you look at that math, it raises some political questions. So Melissa and I asked former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown if California Republicans are in danger of losing their seats over their votes on this key issue.
I think it's far too early to tell, frankly, because I don't think the public is as riveted on the health care issue as some of us who've been watching it.
Are you kidding? You can't turn on the TV, you can't turn on the radio, you can't pick up a newspaper. Everybody's talking about health care.
But not from the standpoint of do I love you or don't I love you. They're all trying to fully understand it. And believe me, are waiting for the CBO to make its report, or you figure out how many people are going to be on, unless it's your relative who is asking you to help because he no longer has coverage. That's when you become concerned.
Well, you know, we're going to find out pretty soon here, right? So these congresspeople are coming back to their districts. They have the whole week off this week. It's supposed to be district work week. So town halls and other kinds of demonstrations may be awaiting these folks, and we can get a gauge of how exactly people are feeling.
Well, the town halls, everybody shows up for those. So there could be Democrats showing up to scream on that. So there's going to be a certain amount of theater. But this going on to the Senate now, it could be in the Senate for what, 6 months, a year?
Oh, sure. But look, if you're Valadeo, you still need some Democrat votes. You need some independent votes. So just because you're still capturing all the Republicans in your district isn't good enough for some of these California Republicans.
And believe me, the whole question about health care has been confusing for people since Roosevelt thought about it back in the 30s.
Yeah.
Every person succeeding that came after him had the same issue. And believe me, Hillary, if you recall, in the 90s, health care. And believe me, I don't think it carries the weight that many of us hoped it would carry against those 7 Republicans who are in districts that Hillary won in California, and theoretically, they should lose. Not the case.
Question. Good move or bad move for President Trump to have everybody in the Rose Garden this week saying, yes, 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 cheering it on?
Yeah, the optics can really come back to haunt you on something like that, especially if you only hit a double, right? You still have to get through the Senate, you know, sort of declaring yourselves the victors at this point, bringing out the beer, everybody laughing and joking, while some people are at home really, really frightened about what's going to happen to them.
Would you look at the expression on your face?
I don't believe what you're saying. I thought that was genius. Total and complete. He took the moment, and that is all that people are going to remember, because the promises and the misrepresentations, boom.
I got to tell you, I'm still looking forward to the Democrats maybe putting together a bill of the kinds of changes they'd like to see to the Obamacare, the current system. Right now, you talk to a Democrat, they just say, oh, it's flawed. But let's talk about specifically what you'd like to fix so we can have a different kind of narrative.
I mean, you're talking about policy as opposed to politics.
Yes.
Healthcare versus the next election. How far-reaching, how far thoughtful. Up next, we're going to sit down with Congressman Mark DeSaulnier and talk about, okay, the American Health Care Act. What's it mean for the Bay Area? And is it going to be politics or policy?
And a major bank is drilling safe deposit boxes open. The Bay Area customers missing tens of thousands of dollars in valuables. President Trump trying to win over senators in the health care debate after a bill to replace Obamacare passed narrowly in the House.
We expect there to be some changes, but we expect the principles and the main pillars of the health care bill as it exists now to remain the same.
Republican senators say the House bill needs modifications. Some don't like cuts in Medicaid, the reduction in tax credits for low-income people, or abandoning requirements for basic care. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has appointed Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee to lead a group of 13 men and no women tasked with coming up with a Senate version of the health care bill.
Joining us now to talk about what it means for California and what was going on behind the scenes in Washington is Congressman Mark DeSaulnier. Thank you for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
What was going on, aside from the Rose Garden and at the Capitol? What was going on behind the scenes on this?
Well, I wasn't privy to what the Republican, the majority was doing, but it was pretty crazy. One of the most irresponsible things I've ever seen. I don't understand how they could possibly believe that the American public would support what they did.
Well, where were the Democrats? Where is the Democratic alternative plan?
The Democratic alternative plan, from my view, would be Medicare for all. So I'm a co-author of a bill by John Connors that would just be Medicare for all, so single-payer universal health care.
But I haven't seen the Democrats coalesce around something that is expressible and selling it to the public as an alternative. I just hear them saying no, no, no to this one.
Well, we're trying to save what we've got right now. I think a lot of us think we can do better. We can do Medicare for everybody in America. Every other industrialized country has a form of universal single-payer health care. But this bill cuts 24 million people who lose health care, 4 million in California, eliminates 3 million people who get behavioral health, won't get it any longer. And all it does is give almost $800 billion in tax cuts for the top 1%. That's all this bill was about.
Okay, but California has a history of pushing for this, for health care, whether it's single payer or whatever. Now, California has the option of picking up those people, right? And paying for it themselves.
Right, but they're going to have to do it with a lot less support from the federal government, less than we've ever gotten in previous administrations, including in George W. Bush's administration, Republican administrations.
Okay, when it goes to the Senate, what are you expecting there? Do you think it goes anywhere? Does it die slowly, or what happens?
I hope it dies. I hope what comes out of it is that we all coalesce, Republicans and Democrats, to your point, and say, okay, I won't get what I want, which is Medicare for all. So let's see how we can fix the Affordable Care Act, which would be controlling costs for consumers, making sure that prescription drugs are controlled. Those are two big things that we have supported doing.
Okay, but again, in order to do that, we have to have a Democratic alternative that the Democrats coalesce around, and I haven't seen that. I hear you, I hear somebody else over here, I hear somebody else over there. I hear universal criticism of what they've done, but I don't hear a universal coalescing about what should be done.
Because elections have consequences, and we were in the minority, unfortunately, because the American people have put the Republicans in the majority and elected this president. So what we've tried to do is protect what we've got, and that means you've got to be in the defensive. Having said that, we have offered the alternative of Medicare for all, which is what I think is the gold standard for America.
Do you see support for that? I mean,
no, because the Republicans won't support the ACA.
Right, but even among Democrats, is that a universal?
I think it's how you roll it out. There's going to be big startup costs. So anything you do in this large a percentage, 20% of the GDP goes to healthcare, almost 25%. So changing it dramatically is not going to happen. You have to do it, and that's really where our discussion is: how quickly do you do it? How do you have a transition for it? But first of all, you have to do no harm, which the Hippocratic Oath since the Greeks says do no harm. This bill is one of the most outrageous, irresponsible bills, probably domestically, in the last 30 years. And you think that the Senate will pass it, or do you think that they will not? I hope to God they don't. No, not the hope. Do I think? Yeah, a pragmatic. Do you think they will? I don't have the gift of prophecy here. I mean, the Republicans control the Senate. I think Susan Collins from Maine has said she's not. There has been a lot of opposition to it on the Republican side. So this is election. It's a democracy. If you're in the majority, you get to set the tenor. Okay, the Democrats are in the majority in the state of California. Do they have an alternative, do you see? Yeah, Ricardo Lara and Tony Atkins in the Senate, former colleagues, they have universal health care for all. There's a cost associated with that. I think it just got out of the Senate Health Committee this week. And you think California taxpayers are ready to assume that cost? I think they are. I think they are. I think Californians understand in the long run, you get better quality care and the cost will come down for everybody. And, you know, we're cutting, under this bill, 24 million of the poorest, most vulnerable Americans will end up without health care. That's not what a great country should be about. And California will lead the way out of this. But we have to, first of all, get the Republicans to come to the table and talk about controlling costs. Or be a shining example, which all can reach for, just like we are with everything else. That's why we're in such great shape. I want to thank you for joining us this morning, Congressman DeSaulnier. My pleasure. And now let's go and look at something.
Live from the CBS Bay Area studios, this is KPIX 5 News.
You'll have better health care at a lower cost.
These folks are playing politics with public health.
You know, we put our tax.
President Trump celebrates health care reform with Republicans, while California Senator Kamala Harris bashes it during a live podcast in San Francisco.
Plus, the president is spending the weekend at the summer White House. Why he says that traveling is actually saving us all money.
And a hacker attack overshadowing another national election. Why some say Russia might be trying to tip the balance of power in France. Welcome back to KPIX 5 this morning. The time is 8 o'clock. I'm Melissa Kane.
I'm Phil Matier.
And I'm Julie Watts, and we'll get started this half hour with a check of your Sunday forecast. Out the door this morning, blue skies over the Golden Gate, and temperatures are in the mid-50s, low to mid-50s, depending on where you are. Across the Bay, 54 in San Jose, 56 Santa Rosa, and 57 in Concord. Already starting to warm up today. Temperatures will be warmer because the winds we enjoyed yesterday will die down. You may not have enjoyed them, but we had them nonetheless. Breezy still along the coast, but a cool start this morning for most, and the winds have diminished substantially. Later today, temperatures will increase into the 70s for some spots inland. Plenty of sunshine, certainly warmer than what we saw yesterday. And then we have a mild, partly sunny week ahead. Warmer over the next couple of days and then cooling towards the latter half of the week. We'll talk more about your extended forecast in just a bit. But first, a quick look at an event today. We've got the a la carte art festival at Mountain View, mild for your Sunday, 72 degrees. Full forecast coming up. Back over to you guys.
Hey, California Senator Kamala Harris is in town, and she took part in a live podcast in San Francisco. It featured Obama administration veterans, and as KPIX5's Andrea Borba explains, they had a lot to say on the issue of health care.
In front of a sold-out crowd at the Warfield, not a musical, not a play, but a podcast.
Welcome to Pod Save America. Hello, San Francisco.
Pod Save America is helmed by 4 former Obama administration members, all talking progressive politics and, since Inauguration Day, how to resist actions by the Trump administration. The main topic tonight, health care.
The bad news is that, the Senate is probably under more pressure than ever before to pass something. And so, the Senate got their 13 Republicans, all dudes, all white dudes and Ted Cruz. Who will be writing a health care bill.
In order to fix the problems of the House bill, they would have to be more generous in the subsidies.
Joining them on stage and online, freshman California Senator Kamala Harris.
Well, the first thing we've got to do is to speak the truth. And the truth is that these folks are playing politics with public health.
Harris and hosts agreed their goal was a plan for the 2018 midterm elections.
The 7 are the ones who are in districts that Hillary won, right? So let's just talk strategy.
Served up with a side of political humor.
So they're engaged in all of this happy talk that is not truth.
In San Francisco, Andrea Borba, KPIX 5.
Meanwhile, the president used his weekly address to celebrate the Republican health care bill that's now moving on to the Senate.
You'll have better health care at a lower cost. And now I'm calling on the Senate to take action.
There's going to be a 13-member working group that will make changes to the bill before it's up for a vote in the Senate. So far, though, it's not yet clear how much the bill would cost or how it could impact people's coverage. Still, Democrats say they're going to fight it.
We will make sure that Trump Care doesn't pass the Senate and can't hurt the American people.
Democrats don't like the part of the bill that allows states to opt out of Obamacare protections for people with pre-existing conditions. Meanwhile, the president also said yesterday that he's already ready to move on to the next item on his agenda.
We're going to get this finished, and then we're going, as you know, we put our tax plan in. It's a massive tax cut, the biggest tax cut in the history of our country.
The Trump administration released a one-page tax plan last month. They say the bulk of the details will be unveiled in August.
And the president will make his first foreign trip in office at the end of May. He's expected to go to Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the Vatican. He also plans on heading to Belgium and Sicily for NATO and G7 meetings. Right now, Trump is at his getaway in New Jersey for the first time as president. Yesterday, demonstrators lined both sides of a road in the town of Bedminster. That's where the president has a summer residence at his Trump golf course. It's about 40 miles west of New York City. And a new report finds that the president keeps racking up taxpayer bills for his weekend travels and Secret Service protection. He says he's actually doing everyone a favor. When he tweeted that he'd be working in Bedminster for the weekend, he added, "It saves the country money." The New Jersey Golf Club is cheaper to secure than the president's New York penthouse. Police estimate that that penthouse would cost more than $300,000 per day when Mr. Trump is there. That's double the daily cost of protecting the First Lady and their son, Barron.
The bottom line is the president no matter where he goes, and he doesn't get to control the level of cost and security that may come along with that.
In the recently passed budget, Congress agreed to allow an extra $60 million in reimbursement funds to cover the president's getaways. And the mayor of Bedminster is asking for about $300,000 of that.
And back here, California voters could have more to say in the next presidential election. State senators just approved a bill that would move the June primary to the third Tuesday in March. That would make California the third primary in the nation after Iowa and New Hampshire. Supporters of the bill say it would give California voters more influence in national decisions. Meanwhile, Melissa and I asked former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown if this is a good idea, a bad idea, or does it really make any difference at all?
Hopefully, it will make a difference. I don't think it ultimately does, but I would hope it would, because believe me, the whole nature of what happens nationally would change if you left California rather than leave in Iowa.
Well, at the same time, though, I mean, we tried this in '96, 2000, and then in 2008, and we didn't see like, California have an outsized influence in those elections, like the kind that people are expecting with this bill. I don't know how many times we have to do this before people understand.
Well, we do it just about after every election, and we move it back and we move it forward and we move it back and forward. Yes.
But keep in mind, every one of the political parties that has any interest in aspects of this, they always adjust to whatever we do to neutralize.
No matter where you put the goalposts, they change the game.
And we end up having two primaries.
Here's what gets me. The argument is that California, by being this blue state, would allow, and progressive state, would be allowed to set the Democratic agenda. And my question is, California is so big that a Bernie Sanders or any other outsider would have a rough time organizing a statewide campaign in that short amount of time.
No way. I'm telling you, no matter what California does, the Bernie Sanders, the Jesse Jackson types are going to be in great shape no matter what, Phil. They aren't going to be where they position for money. They don't need to do that. As a matter of fact, as long as you make sure kids are in school when a vote takes place, that's all you want.
Well, to be clear, though, the Democratic Party has to approve this. We saw this, I think it was 2008. There was a state, I think it was Illinois, who moved their primary way up. The Democratic Party said, that's outside the boundaries. We're not going to count your delegates at the convention.
Final
that
question.
could happen.
We only have a couple seconds. This whole idea, how much of it is actually trying to accomplish something, and how much of this is just a reaction by the Democrats to say we need to do something because we got our hats handed to us?
It's all about trying to position yourself to do better than you did last time, and that includes moving it.
Now, you spoke with Democratic Chairman John Burton, former congressman, former state Senate president, yada, yada, yada. What was his reaction to the change?
Well, no, so I asked him a while back, so should California move up? And he said, look, California's already so powerful. It doesn't matter sort of where we are in the calendar. And I said, why are we letting New Hampshire have all the fun? And he said, I seriously, you got to give them something. Give New Hampshire something to be special about. Also, just to clarify, Michigan and Florida were the two states who moved up their primaries and were dinged in their delegates by the Democratic Party.
And we moved ours and got dinged by voters saying it cost too much. Okay. Meanwhile, it's never too early. Another CEO may be throwing his hat into the ring for the 2020 presidential election. According to media and tech website Axios, industry sources close to Disney CEO Bob Iger say he's intrigued by a possible run for president. President Trump's re-election victory has resulted in several business people, from Oprah to Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, being mentioned as possible candidates next time around.
And right now, French voters are choosing their next president after one of the most turbulent presidential campaigns in the country's history. Polling stations across France opened several hours ago. Polls favor the left-leaning newcomer Emmanuel Macron over far-right candidate Marine Le Pen. But there's concern after Macron's campaign says it was the target of a hacking operation late Friday. Hackers reportedly posted leaked documents from his campaign to a file-sharing website.
We're quite worried about people who are going to abstain or vote blank, which is going to make a big difference.
There's also concern for Election Day violence. thousands of extra officers are now keeping a watchful eye with voters headed to the polls. Initial official results will be available when final stations close at around 11 a.m. our time. In the meantime, French citizens who now live in the U.S. are also casting their ballots. Our cameras were there as French natives in San Francisco and Sausalito headed to the polls. There are about 44 similar French polling stations across the U.S.
And back in America, a new bill in Texas could allow adoption agencies to reject Jewish, Muslim, and LGBT parents. 5 states have passed similar laws protecting faith-based adoption organizations, but the legislation in Texas would extend to state-funded agencies as well. Republican sponsors of the bill say it's designed to support the religious freedoms of the agencies, but opponents call it unconstitutional and say it funds discriminations with taxpayer dollars. The bill is expected to come up for a debate next week. And still to come, former State Senator Mark Leno joins us. He's just announced he's running for mayor of San Francisco in 2019. We ask him why and what's on the top of his agenda coming up.
And still ahead, another check of your forecast. Winds have died down, temperatures increased today, but how long will we stay on the warm side? Details coming up.
Former San Francisco supervisor and state senator Mark Leno is running for mayor. And on Thursday, Leno held a news conference at City Hall to announce his candidacy in the year 2019. Joining us now to talk about his agenda is the candidate himself, Mark Leno. I've got to ask it, why? You've had a successful run as a state senator. You've taken on everybody from the telecommunications industry about, making sure that cell phones don't get stolen and resold on the market. You've taken on some giants in the manufacturing industry for consumer complaints. And why take on something as crazy as running San Francisco?
There is something to be said for knowing when to get off the stage. I've had 18 years in public office, and they've been terrific. And I'm not looking at the next stage of my life. And I have to say, Phil, I've come to know I was a closet policy wonk. I'm now out of the closet. I love public policy. I love the public arena. And I love San Francisco. We're facing a lot of challenges. I want to offer my skills and expertise, my passion and energies to the city to address these issues.
But you've known this city for so long. Is it, in fact, governable?
We have to believe that. I have to believe that. I don't know that there are perfect solutions to any problem, but we've got to move the ball forward. We've got to strive. We've got to set our sights high, and that's what we want to do.
You've been around a number of mayors. Who, in your opinion, was a good or great mayor of San Francisco? Have there been?
So there's no such thing as the perfect mayor. There are successes and failures in any administration. For example, going back to Senator Feinstein, when she was mayor, she took over at a time when the city was literally being ripped apart. She brought some sense to the city. She also attended to the issue of gun violence, which was at the core of some of the violence that we were facing at the time. Art Agnos took down that freeway at the Embarcadero, gave us a whole new part of town. Willie Brown was really one of the last big city mayors of old time, in that what you can build and what you can leave behind is your legacy. So Mission Bay and baseball stadiums and restoring City Hall. There's a dark side to everything that we do as well.
It's an interesting, you're right, because for every positive, then people say, well, they did this and they did that, and how they did it wasn't right. Is there such a thing as a perfect politics? In other words, San Francisco loves the idea of having the correct process for achieving the goal, as opposed to necessarily achieving the goal. That's the most difficult part, I think, of governing San Francisco.
Well, as you say, there is a reaction to every action. So our current mayor has brought unemployment down from 11% to 3-point-something%. That's a great thing, but there are shadow sides to everything. Did we plan on all the housing that was going to be needed for all of the new employment? So
let me give you one of the great complex imponderables and see if you can come up with a 30-second soundbite. Homelessness. Yes. For as long as we've been around, it has been a growing problem. We've had program after program, answer after answer, $250 million a year plus being spent a year on it. What can really be done?
So I was talking with Mayor Art Agnos recently about it, and he made Camp Agnos, which was his one of the challenges that he faced. He says, looks like a summer camp compared to what we've got today. So this is not just a local problem, it's a regional problem, it's a national disgrace. We are making progress. I think that Mayor Lee has appointed someone very accomplished and able to deal with it, and that's Jeff Kaczynski.
So you give him points for that?
I do. I think Jeff Kaczynski is, we're going to see results. We don't see them immediately. Keep in mind also, and this is tough to say, after the crash of '08, cities like Los Angeles, New York, Seattle, Chicago saw exponential spikes in their homelessness. Because of our investment of $250 million, we have relatively contained it. We've got to do much better. Of course we do. The misery on the streets is untenable. We have to invest more in mental health services, and we've got an opioid a problem in our streets that compare to Ohio and Pennsylvania and West Virginia, and that's driving a lot of that.
And at the same time, we have the highest real estate values in the country. We have, like you said, unemployment is down. So part of this is how do you struggle with success? It's an interesting paradox.
There are those who suggest that San Francisco's grumpier when unemployment's down and a lot of people are making money.
I've watched it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing worse than when things are going really well because people are really complaining about the traffic and about the building and about the Muni being crowded with everybody going to work.
With all of the challenges, and the traffic is maddening, of course, and to see all the suffering on the streets, but I sense a lot of generosity of spirit of San Franciscans right now. They want to see things get better, and they're willing to chip in. Headline in today's paper, The Tipping Point is putting together $100 million of private funds to partner with the city to address the 1,700 chronically homeless people on the street, those who have been there for over a year and dealing with mental health and behavioral health problems. So there's a spirit that we can do more, and we want to do more. Let us help. And so 18 years in public life, my reputation is of bringing all voices to the table, to respecting everyone in a dignified fashion, and bringing the best and brightest so we can find some solutions. Beware of anyone who suggests, I alone can fix this. We've heard that, and that is not somewhere we want to go.
Yeah, okay. Well, we will keep an eye on that, and we will not say you alone will fix this. No, but together we can. Is that it?
There you go.
There we go. Or together we don't, which is often the case in San Francisco as well. I want to thank you for joining us, Mark Lennon. We're going to be seeing you. I suspect you're probably going to be taking off somewhere and relaxing for a couple of days, or at least for this afternoon. Or are you going to be out campaigning?